and welcome to the House Agriculture and Forestry Committee. I'm Representative Carolyn Partridge at my home in Windham, and all of the smiling faces of my committee and others are here. We are having this special meeting to take up a couple of amendments, and what we'll do is we'll go to Representative Gregoire's amendment. And James, I see you're here. I don't know if you can show yourself and still be heard, but you are welcome. And please feel free to tell us what you would like to do. And you are muted. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to go on vacation in Jamaica, but that's not going to happen.
Me too.
Sharon has told me I have work to do. So my amendment, which at this point, I'm not even sure how far I'm going to go with it. I've talked to a lot of people about even if the body, we feel like even if the body overwhelmingly supports it, that there's going to be tie-ups between the Senate and the House and leadership. And, you know, I've talked to local dairy leaders and they're kind of on the same fence that they don't want to risk this bill being held up. Although they do want and need far more assistance than we're providing. But I'll tell you what my amendment does anyway.
Okay.
It adds $10 million just to the dairy side. So for dairy processors and dairy producers. And it changes the allocations for each category within. So for example, for producers, a small farm under the existing bill gets 18,300. Under mine, it would get a maximum of 30. Certified small would get 34,300 under the existing, 50 under mine, and it goes up like that. Large farms 100 versus 130, and so the same process for the processors. The smallest, instead of being 31,000, will be 45,000. The next category, instead of being 40,000, will be 58,000. Up to the top, where instead of 60,000, would be 90,000. So relatively substantial for some. A difference, you know, the difference of staying in business or going out of business. And as we know, and you guys worked hard on this, so you know as well as I do, that even if we would have funded at the level the governor has, it's still not enough, not even close. So I was really just disappointed that after it went through the other committee, that it was pared down to what it was. It was expected, unfortunately, but feel like it's worth a try on the one hand to try to get more money, and they definitely need it. But at the same time, like I'm struggling right now with having some conversations whether or not that even if the House voted 140 to 10, I feel like there might still be issues with the Senate and getting it through. And so I have a lot of thought to do before floor as whether or not I'm going to pull it or introduce it.
Okay, thanks, James. So I didn't notice it on the calendar today. So have you already submitted it, or what status is it at this point?
As far as I know, it's submitted, but I'll check with Ledge Council to make sure.
Okay. Mike, do you have any light to shed on that?
I'm not allowed to submit it. The representative has to submit it. I can also, what the clerk is doing is, if you email the clerk and say, Ledge Council will send you an amendment, I can then send the amendment. But I'm not allowed to do it on my own. I have to wait for approval from the rep.
Okay.
All right. Did you present this to the Appropriations Committee, James?
I did.
Okay, and did they actually take a vote on it?
They did.
Okay.
Are you going to make me relive that tragic situation?
Well, it would be helpful. It would help us to know what they voted.
2-9.
Okay, 2 in favor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know, I feel that they're very genuine, that they do support dairy, and they just feel that there's an issue with money. Although I just come from a different school. I think that holding the money back although for probably a good purpose, means more to people right now in their pockets to keep them from going out of business than waiting 3 months to review and see if who has failed and who's survived. But just a different different outlook, I guess. And like I told them, I mean, they deal with the money all the time. They have a lot more knowledge about what's going on behind the scenes than I do. But I mean, in the scheme of things, $10 million will help a lot of farmers, but it won't make a very big dent in the $250 million that's being set aside.
Well, I appreciate that. And as you probably know, we started at a different number. We started working on this at the end of May, and we took testimony. The Senate apparently started work on this in March, although I don't know exactly when, but they included non-dairy ag producers, and they always were working with a $30 million figure. We started a little bit higher, and then actually before the target numbers came out, and we know that there was a lot of thought behind those target numbers. We were thankful to the speaker when she allowed us to combine tier 1, which was 20 million, and tier 2, which is 10 million, into one lump sum of 30 million, which also nicely coincided with the Senate's number. Subsequently, there's been $5 million added for the forestry. And again, thanks to the speaker, the 192,000 for BHCB was also added to the package. So we were thankful about that. I'm wondering if anyone has any comments from from my committee, any comments or questions regarding this. And so I'd love to see some hands if you do. Okay, I see Rodney, John, and Vicky. Rodney, go ahead.
I just want to say to Greg, James, that we understand what you're feeling. We've been feeling this for months now. It's unfortunate that the state really doesn't, not just the people in the state house, but the state as a whole doesn't support the people that feed them more than they do. And I know personally myself, I stopped milking cows because I couldn't afford to do it anymore. And it's very sad, but that's what we're living in, and all we can do is do what we can do.
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. John Bartholomew, then Vicky.
You had said you don't know how far you're going to go with it. Are you planning to actually introduce it, or just do a floor speech about how disappointed you are there isn't more money? What are you planning?
I am in deep contemplation about that issue. In other words, I have not made up my mind. I probably, unfortunately, leaning to the latter, because I don't think that no matter what the vote is on the floor, that this will get through both bodies. But I find that to be very unfortunate, because as Rodney said, I don't think it's malicious by any means. I don't think a lot of people today really understand the role that dairy plays in the state of Vermont, both economically and culturally, on so many different levels, more than just milking a cow and putting out milk. But we're living in the times we're living in, and have to deal with that reality. And I'll make the decision within the next hour, but I'm probably leaning closer to the latter.
Well, that would be obviously easiest for us, but also I think would be really valuable, because I don't think the members of the body can hear often enough the challenges that dairy farmers are facing. So that delivering that message, I think, would be valuable. So I hope you'll at least do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna, at the very least, we'll do that. And I've talked to some of my local dairy leaders who are also the leaders of dairy in the state, and they're I would consider deeply disappointed in the amounts, but they also, having conversation we're talking about, they understand that more likely than not, if this goes through, that it would hold up the bill, and they don't want to risk that. So that's why I'm leaning that way. If they wanted me to push at all cost, I would push at all costs because I think it's that important. But if they're not willing to risk, or they don't want to risk getting completely closed out, I understand that, and that's where my allegiance goes to them. So
I don't think you need to feel too bad about a 2-9 vote out of appropriations either, since a lot of them come out 0-11. So
that's the first time I lost an appropriations vote, so it hurt. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, James. Vicky and then Terry, and Rodney, your hand is up. I'm wondering if you just forgot to lower it or if you have another question. Okay, Vicky, go ahead.
James, I just appreciate your attempt, and the conversation needs to be had. And I just appreciate the amendment and just want to commend you for doing it. It's not easy to go into any committee with an amendment because all the work has been done and we've already voted and that sort of thing. But we do need to come face to face with our priorities. And personally, I think our priorities should be higher for dairy for the amount of money that it puts into our economy, over $1 billion a year. So I just want to say thank you for the amendment, and I would vote for it, knowing that it's probably not going to pass, but it's very important, and our dairy, I think, should be a higher priority in our state. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Terry.
James, I just kind of wanted to echo what everybody else was saying, that just having my wife deal with farmers every day, she knows exactly what they're going through, and it's really, really tough. I mean, I have one, or she has one farmer that calls probably twice a week, maybe more, wondering when that check is coming in. You know, I can't even tell him when, and I still don't know. And even if the bill passes, I still won't be able to tell him. But they're pretty desperate. And so my suggestion would be to introduce the amendment and to make sure to read through it and make sure everybody knows it's there and that they understand that agriculture is that important in Vermont. I think people kind of forget that how much money the farmers process through the different venues that they work with, and it's going to be a really tough road down to travel. So I would say just introduce it and then withdraw when you've finished and explain why you're going to withdraw, and hope for the best, because I feel like the way the others have said that if it goes to the Senate, it's likely that's going to be pulled out anyway, because they're adamant about their 30 million. But it's an excellent try. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Under the circumstances, do you all think we should, oh, Vicky, your hand is up. Is it still up or, okay.
No.
Under the circumstances, should we do a straw poll on this, or, you know, the bill is in approp, so we don't really have control over it, so we wouldn't take a formal vote, but we would potentially do a straw poll. So how do you all feel? Does it make sense to do that?
Well, since he hasn't said for sure that he's planning to withdraw, I think we have to operate under the assumption that the amendment's going to be introduced.
Well,
Okay.
John, let's go with the assumption that I'm withdrawing it.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
James, I don't like that.
I don't either, but we'll go with the speech and you know, hopefully, you know, highlight. I don't want these guys. They're hurting hard enough, and I don't want it held up because the Senate won't cooperate. I'd rather have them get something than get completely left out. It's heartbreaking, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Sharon's hand is up. Sharon, go ahead.
Thanks. Sorry, I was on the phone with my vet. I think that it's worth a speech, especially highlighting the contributions that ag makes to the state, and that dairy is 70% of that income, and how vital it is. And then just to remind everybody, and then to expedite this process as well as possible. So I appreciate, James, your effort, and that you're going to withdraw it.
All right, thanks, Sharon. John O'Brien.
There we go. Carolyn, would it be appropriate for you, I think maybe not to have a straw poll vote, but for you to appreciate the intent of the amendment, and even, echo that we started with 50 million, but also finding that balance that the speaker, allowed us to stick with this 30 million. Just and that we'd rather get that 30 out, and that the Senate, we can make the Senate the bad guys here, and say that it's most important that we get this through.
I think I can potentially do that. The bill is actually in Appropes, and so I would sort of get a feel for what's going on the floor, and how prolonged we have been on the floor at that point, and perhaps get up and appreciate what James has tried to do, but also point out the reality of the situation, and maybe not reference what we started with, but so show some appreciation to the speaker for allowing us to combine the two tiers into one to get that money out faster to the farmers. So I'll consider that. Sorry, my husband's cooking breakfast. Did you all hear that?
I can't smell it though. What is it?
Probably
My husband
eggs.
doesn't make that much noise when he cooks breakfast.
That's right. Never apologize for a husband making breakfast.
I am just thankful he cooks his own breakfast. John Bartholomew's hand is up.
I was just going to point out that you'd have to be careful if you're going to talk about the amendment, because if the amendment is not introduced, then you can't debate it. So you just have to have that as part of a comment about the general bill.
Yeah. That's why I think I'm being a little bit careful here, but thanks, John. I appreciate that. Chip, is there anything you wanted to say about this, or I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in.
I don't really have anything to add. I mean, I think James, I hope he took away from his visit to our committee how reluctant those of us who voted against it were to vote against it. He explained, I think the reasoning that we gave. I'll certainly speak to that on the floor. I said to somebody the other day, it's sort of amazing how little $1 billion buys these days. It's clear we all wish there was more, and we could do more for all kinds of, everybody who's suffering. But we are where we are, and I'm just rambling. So I will report on the floor.
All right. So do we feel like we should take a straw poll or not here? John Bartholomew, you're our parliamentarian. What do you think?
It doesn't seem like there's a need if he's planning to withdraw it, but if he's not, then we'd be good to have the vote.
James,
he seems to be indicating he's not gonna introduce it.
Okay, James, do you have any sense?
I think that I am 99% going to just, I don't know how technically this works, but introduce it, say my speech, and then say I withdraw.
Mm-hmm. So there's that 1% chance.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah. All right, well, perhaps we will just let it lie then. And we'll try to, if there's an opportunity during the speech, the floor action on this, we will try to make a comment. But I really want to thank you, James, for coming to us and for making the attempt. I think that many of us have had a certain amount of heartache as we have taken testimony on this bill, and would love to see more. But everybody on the committee has made really good points. I really appreciate that. And I see Rodney has his hand up and John has his hand up. John Bartholomew has his hand up again. So Rodney, you go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell James that, you know, we do certainly appreciate support on this issue, and we would love to get more out to the dairy farmers, and hopefully that when we come back in the fall, there'll be some more funds that we can try and snag and get to them. And hopefully the federal government will start putting out some payments too, but it's just under the circumstances and our time frame that we, you know, I just don't think we can risk doing this, but we certainly appreciate the support, James.
Yeah. John Bartholomew.
I was thinking that you might want to consider, rather than actually introducing it, you can spend most of your time talking about the plight of dairy farmers and how they really are struggling and need more. And rather than spending a bunch of time going through an amendment you're going to withdraw and then just at the end say that you're not going to introduce it, but explain why you think it's important, that would give more airtime to the issues that might be most important. Just a suggestion.
And I saw Vicky's hand up briefly. Vicky, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, thanks. I just personally feel like where there's a will, there's a way. And if dairy is a priority for our state, which it's the backbone of our economy and our beauty and what we do as a state, what we attract for tourists, then we should put our money where our mouth is. And to just, you know, kind of glibly say, well, it won't pass in the Senate, just doesn't cut it with me. If we had this as a priority, it would fly through. So I'm sorry, I'm just passionate again. These guys aren't gonna make it. But I just feel like it's worth more than just a speech. I really would like to vote on it. So that's my little take and my opinion.
All right, Vicky, would you, I mean, I'm more than happy to have a straw poll if people feel that it's necessary. And I appreciate your passion, Vicky, and I know you've gotten many of the same phone calls I have that are really heartbreaking. I think what it comes down to is that there just isn't time. And if the leaders in the dairy world are saying, yeah, don't do it, James, it's because that, you know, we're going to be done day after tomorrow. And it's the reason why we're not having committees of conference. And it's the reason we're about to talk about amending the hemp language from 656 to 351, because there just isn't time. So I don't know. How do y'all feel? Sharon?
I wish I was queen because I could fix this.
Me too.
But I'm not. And I feel that I need to work within the bounds of the reality that unfortunately I don't control. So I'm going to stick with my serenity prayer, and I'm going to accept those things I cannot change, and I'm going to support us moving forward without the amendment, because we need to get the money to the farmers as soon as possible. And if I just happen to like get a big gift from Jeff Bezos, I'll give it to the dairy farmers, but I don't see that happening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other thoughts before we move along here?
What did you decide about the vote?
Well, what did we decide?
Waiting for guidance from the chair.
I'm seeing Terry shaking his head no. Anybody else? Tom's shaking his head no. No on Sharon. John O'Brien? No. John Bartholomew? Okay, John, John O'Brien. Okay, I'm seeing no, Vicky, but I really appreciate your passion. John had his hand up and then Vicky.
Well, I just think it's one of those odd things where everybody on the committee supports more money for the dairy farmers, but right, we're at that 11th hour, and the reality is that if we don't go for the 30, we might not even get that.
Right. Good point. Vicky, your hand is up. Vicky.
I mean, I understand, and I don't, hold it against anybody that you don't want to vote. But I've quit saying over the years a couple things in my life, and one is I don't have time for something, or I don't have the money for something. And for the most part, my priorities are set by what's passionate in my life, and our legislature as a whole, we support dairy, obviously, but if we truly did, we'd be doing these things, and we wouldn't be in the 9th inning or the 11th hour. We would have done this. And so I'm just disappointed in how things have turned out. And I realize a lot of people are disappointed about a lot of things. But I'm here on behalf of my dairy farmers, and I love this committee, and I'm so thankful I serve on it for my area and for our state. And I appreciate you all. I appreciate my dairy farmers. I'm so disappointed we can't do more.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it seems like most people would rather not have a vote on this. I think it's pretty clear everyone would like to vote for it, but there's a reality involved here. Terry, your hand is up.
Yeah, I mean, if we had jurisdiction on the bill, more than a straw vote would be a good thing, but since it's really not in our control, I mean, even though we're the Ag Committee, and I think everybody that's watching on YouTube knows that we support agriculture. So
Yeah.
I don't think we have to keep telling them that. They already know it. I mean, we were kind of, well, I won't say overruled, but things just didn't work out well for us to get the money to the farmers. But I think people understand that we tried our best, and we just need to do what we can do and move on.
Thanks, Terry. And we were able to get 25 million for processors and producers, and I think that's a good thing. So all right, any other comments on this before we move on to the Hemp Amendment? All right, James, I want to thank you for coming to us today. We really appreciate your efforts, and we look forward to hearing your speech on the floor. And you're welcome to stay with us, or you can leave us if you want. We won't be offended.
Well, I don't necessarily want to leave, but I have a committee meeting of my own that started half an hour ago. So.
Okay.
And
All
the
right.
speech to write.
Yes, the speech, yes.
Well, it's something I feel strongly enough about that I might not have to write anything. But
Yeah.
anyway, I appreciate you guys' time.
So,
Thank you.
James, in our bill, what was it? Our findings in the beginning list the many values that dairy contributes to our state. I don't know if that might be handy for your speech.
Thank you, Sharon.
All right. Thank you, James. All right. So our next topic is the Hemp Amendment, and that I believe is on the website. It is the language that was in 656. And I'll tell you why we're doing this. And I'm not even sure actually what the exact status is. What Bobby was supposed to call me last night. I tried to call him. I didn't get an answer. So it was in Ways and Means yesterday. There were 3 or maybe 2 or 3 small things, including the chronic wasting disease fee, which we were we were putting onto the owners of the captive deer. Mike, you're here. Why don't you just tell us? There were maybe 2 or 3 things that caused it to go to Ways and Means.
Sure. So there were 3 fees, technically fees in the bill, but none of them really have an impact on the revenues of the state. As the chair just referenced, there was a section that shifted the cost of chronic wasting disease testing for captive cervid producers from the Agency of Agriculture to the producer themselves. Typically over the last 6 years, that cost to the agency has been about $2,000, but the producer who was responsible for 95% of those costs has retired. So frankly, the cost being shifted to the producers, it's very, very little, and the state will save very little because they won't be paying for any tests. They wouldn't have been paying for tests regardless of this change. The other change was that there's a fee reference in 656 for the registration of commercial feed. You may remember that you banned the sale of commercial feed that is labeled as deer bait. So potentially there are some products that won't be sold in the state that were once sold in the state that will have a revenue impact, but it's relatively minor because the registration is per product, not per bag. And so you're probably going to lose maybe a couple $100 in state revenue from that. And then the other fee referenced in the bill was the fee for an importation permit for wild animals. Remember, that's in there because of the feral swine bill, feral swine provisions. The agency is not, the Department of Fish and Wildlife is not going to issue a permit for the importation of feral swine unless it's for scientific or educational reasons. So there's really no revenue impact there. It will be a rare, if any, occurrence for the department to issue a permit for importation of feral swine. So those are the 3 revenue provisions in 8656. They are they have minor impact on the revenues of the state at best.
Okay, thanks. Mike, did it get through Ways and Means?
It was never referred to Ways and Means.
I mean, Finance. I'm sorry, Finance.
Yeah,
That's
yes, it did. It passed unanimously for all those members who were there. Senator McDonald at least was absent. And Senator Balint is going to report.
Okay, and now it's gone on to Approps. Yes, but the timing is such that we want to make sure, because the hemp part of it, we want 656 to get through the entire process. There's no doubt about that. We want to be able to concur with them. However, it's like like I said, we're ending this session day after tomorrow. So I felt, and the speaker agreed, that it was given that the hemp language is really extremely time sensitive in terms of the growing season for our hemp farmers, that we should attach it to the CRF bill and just as I use this term belt and suspenders. So I'm proposing that we amend this. Now, everybody's seen this language before. We've voted on it before. And essentially what it does is our pilot program was created under the 2014 Federal Agricultural Act, which I'm going to refer to as the Farm Bill. And the 2018 bill changed some of the requirements. We just want our farmers, our hemp farmers, to continue to be able to function. Mike O'Grady, you can correct me if I'm wrong, under the 2014 Farm Bill. So that's what this language essentially does. Am I right or am I wrong?
You are right. The language in the hemp growing seed provision actually gives the rationale why.
Yes.
So you could just refer to that and how the 2018 Farm Bill and the USDA interim rule make it very difficult for hemp cultivators to comply, if they could comply at all. But the 2018 Farm Bill also authorized those states with pilot programs authorized under the 2014 bill to continue operating until 1 year after the interim rule was adopted, which would give the state until October 31st, 2020 to operate under the pilot program from 2014. So the pilot program, we've been implementing a pilot program. We know how we can implement it. Hemp growers can grow during the 2020 season under the pilot program. But if that isn't clear or isn't clarified in 656 or 351, the statute says that the state hemp program shall comply with the 2018 Farm Bill. Well, as I've already said, the farmers and the agency believe it will be difficult to comply with that 2018 Farm Bill. The agency had, with other states, been trying to get Congress to make amendments to the 2018 Farm Bill and to the interim rules. But there have been some occurrences that have happened over the past couple of months that have gained priority over that change. And so the agency is still going to try to seek changes, but it may take longer than they want. So this gives the state the ability to continue its hemp program in compliance with federal law until at least October 31st, 2020.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So let's see. Chip, your hand is up. Oh, and I actually didn't finish it. So let me finish it and then I'll go to you guys. So as you remember, or maybe you don't, but many farmers had issues with the seed they bought this last growing season. They were promised feminized seed. They were promised a certain germination, or there was an expectation around germination. And some of these folks really took a bath and they paid top dollar for these seeds. So what the hemp seed portion of the amendment does is just create a whole bunch of requirements on the people who are selling the seed, selling, offering for sale, exposing for sale, transporting for sale, or distributing, that it's not labeled, that it's properly labeled, let's put it that way. So there are a bunch of requirements. I'm assuming that, as I recall, many of these requirements are what's required of, zucchini seeds. So so this is not, we're not holding the hemp guys to a higher standard. We're just asking them to provide our farmers with quality seed, at a price, that it's all promised. And I'm rambling. So Mike, you unmuted yourself. Why don't you say something?
I think that's right. You are, because hemp isn't technically one of the seeds that are already regulated by the state, because hemp under federal law, hemp seed under federal law is hemp. You have to regulate hemp seed under the hemp chapter and not under the seed chapter. Mm-hmm. And so you are just imposing on hemp seed the same requirements you do for other seed, with a couple of different variations. Most other seed is not feminized, so they don't have to declare as feminization. Because it is hemp, it has to be subject to the hemp penalties, and the hemp penalties are a little bit more stringent than the penalties for other seeds. So those are really the two differences. Some of the labeling requirements are different because hemp is a different type of seed that has feminization and germination standards that are a little different. And the penalty, because you want to maintain compliance with federal law and keep hemp seed as hemp and regulate it as hemp, including the penalties that it's subject to.
Thank you. Chip, your hand was up. You go ahead.
Okay.
And then John O'Brien.
Two questions. One, on the seed regulation, does that also include anything about the level of THC that's produced by the plant, or is that related to the feminization? I just wonder if that's one of the factors that will be regulated.
I'm looking at some of the requirements. And Mike, do you know off the top of your head?
So it's not in the current label requirement. Since all hemp has to be below a certain THC, it's one, depending on the testing requirement, and that's a big part of the USDA issue with the USDA rule. But if you see there's a rulemaking section added that the agency's given the ability to require disclosure or labeling of the amount of a cannabinoid known to be present in hemp seed sold or distributed in the state. So there is some at least authority. And I know it says cannabinoid and not THC, but if it's hemp, it's supposed to be below that. And anything that they claim on the label has to be accurate and true. And that is part of the requirement for the label as well. So they can't say that they have 0 THC and actually have THC in it. That would be a violation of the label.
Okay, thank you. The other question, Mike, is probably for you. We, in order to operate under the 2014 Farm Bill provisions, what do we have to do? What do we have to do legislatively to make that okay?
You have to do what's being done in 656 and what is proposed in the 351 amendment. You have to notwithstand that statute that says that the state's going to operate its hemp program under the 2018 Farm Bill. So you notwithstand that for a period of until October 1st, 2020, 31st, 2020. And then hopefully we get changes to the USDA program at that point or sometime before the 2021 growing season.
Thank you.
All right. Chip, any other questions at the moment?
Not at the moment.
Okay. John O'Brien.
Carolyn, Mike, and Chip, could you just walk us through now how this journey works? Because we're adding an amendment, right? Or it's being offered to 351. Then does it have to go back to the Senate for one last okay, since there's not a committee of conference?
No, our hope would be that they will just concur.
But the whole Senate would have to vote on it.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
If you just concurred with their proposal, then it just goes to the governor. But you're not doing that. It has to go back to the Senate anyway, because you've made changes to 351.
Right. And who's offering the amendment? Is it Ag or Approps?
it's Carolyn. And if you all vote for it, I'll say it's under my name, but that we all approve.
Okay,
And
so potentially.
So what's going to happen is we'll go through the whole thing, and then, and I'm assuming this is the way it's going to work. Then I will offer the amendment after most of it's done. Chip is going to take this to his committee so that they will hopefully approve it as well. And then the whole House votes.
So theoretically, we could completely Christmas tree 656 into 351. Or-
I wouldn't recommend that, no.
No.
No. And you know, it's our true hope and our belief that 656 is going to make it to us. And one of the goals for us to talk about at noon when we meet after the floor is going through 656 just to get a complete picture of what they've done. We've had updates from Mike, who's been great, but so that we understand, so that when it comes to us, we can just concur. So that's the plan, that's the hope. But this is just belt and suspenders with the hemp language. The hemp language is the only thing that really is time sensitive for our hemp growers for this growing season. And well, you know, the other, we can, if it weren't to make it, if 656 weren't to make it, we can take it up in August, you know, so anyway. Terry's hand is up. Terry?
If we add this to our bill, do you see any possible opposition in the Senate outside of the Ag Committee?
I don't think so. I think that it's gotten to this point. It's in there now, and it's made it through the entire process through ways of finance. Sorry, and you know, I don't think Appropriations is going to have a problem with it. Bobby sits on Appropriations, so I think it'll be good.
I just wondered. Well, I'm sure you've seen the email about Senator Rogers. I wondered if they could be any like venomous kickback to Senator Rogers because he is a supporter of hemp and marijuana. But that's just a possibility. But I hope that's not something that might happen.
Well, I think that most people
mention that, but
well, if it's a reality, you can mention it. But I think most senators have hemp growers in their districts, and to do something as petty as to defeat this because they have some kind of angst toward a fellow senator, I think would be kind of low.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope so.
Me too. John Bartholomew.
I'm just trying to remember, is there anything in the hemp language that would send this to finance or appropriations?
Well, it's already been there in 656.
Right, but if we add it to this bill, then by rule, I think it would have to go again because that this amendment in this bill has not. I just want to make sure we don't end up with an unintended delay in the Senate because of some rule that requires it to go to other committees. I can't remember if there are any fees or any appropriations in there.
I don't believe that there are, and I will confirm that.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I don't think that, I mean, and I think also that an argument could be made, I don't know how exactly they work, but an argument could be made to, since it had just gone through in 656, to just sort of forego that. But I don't know. Any other questions about this? All right, because this would be an amendment coming from me and our committee, essentially, I think we do need to take a vote on this. So any more conversation? I'm not seeing any hands. So and you've all seen the amendment, right? Okay, so I know Linda sent it out. All right, shall we take a roll call vote?
Carolyn?
Yes, John?
So is 351 coming up today?
Yes.
And this amendment also, even though it's not on the
Yes.
calendar?
That's right. I'm going to, as soon as we approve it, I reached out to Bill McGill early this morning, told him that what was happening, and I said that I would send it to him as soon as we had our vote. He said, thank you. So we're on the floor at 10. I think if this amendment goes through and and Chip has his work to do because he's gonna have to take it to his committee. If everything works smoothly, we will ask for a rule suspension to send through all remaining stages of passage. So,
Can I ask a quick question? Maybe John Bartholomew is the guy to ask this of, but you're offering an individual amendment, even though you're going to ask your committee to support it. But I mean, our committee will have to vote on it as an amendment to the bill, which is in our possession. But does your committee, is a roll call vote in your committee something that is, I don't know, appropriate or the thing to do? Will that be something to report to the body?
yeah, I think it would be something to report to the body. But Mike O'Grady's unmuted himself, so we'll listen to him.
It really officially is not required, but it will potentially be helpful. Representative Conquest is right. Really only the official action is the Appropriations Committee's vote on it.
Mm-hmm. But if we show support for it, then your committee, Chip, might be more likely to support it as well.
I mean, yes, fair enough. I just need to, yeah, so I'll wait to get the vote and then I'll take off to my committee and report the vote and why we would be putting it on our bill.
Okay. And do you feel like you have a good understanding of why that is?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just review the two important provisions I think you talked about are one, the need to provide sort of quality assurance around the seed for growers, which is not in place now because hemp is regulated under the hemp chapter and not under, or at least the seeds are still regulated on the hemp chapter and not the seed chapter. And what was it? Oh, that, and in order to operate under the provisions of the 2014 Farm Bill, we need to not withstand the requirement to operate under 2018, which we can do, we're allowed to do by the feds until October 31st of this year.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
All right.
And if you want to get more into the weeds, no pun intended, most hemp farmers would find it very hard to comply with the 2018 Farm Bill. So you might, if it's, and it has to do with the chemical composition of a lot of the hemp that was grown.
I can certainly include that part about the difficulties of the 2018 as compared to the 2014.
Yeah. All right, John O'Brien's hand is up.
Did 656 go through approbes, Chip?
Sorry, I'm muted. No.
Okay. It just went straight from ag to the House floor.
Did 650? No, your housekeeping bill?
Yeah.
Yes, it went right from your committee, the Ag Committee, to the floor.
Yeah.
Didn't it have a very brief stay in Ways and Means, or they didn't take position, but they looked at it.
Right, and when Representative Ansel said she was uninterested.
Yeah, always good.
And it didn't have an appropriation in it at that time. It now, with the Senate proposal, has an appropriation, the $192,000 to VHCB for that position is in that bill.
And so that's also in 351.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so All right.
Senator Starr.
Yeah.
He knows what he needs to do if 351 passes today. He knows what he needs to do.
Okay, great. Fantastic. All right, shall we vote, gang? Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Sharon?
What should I say? I make a motion that we vote on amending. Sorry, completely.
All right, so
I
it's
think
dropped.
you just moved to support Representative Partridge's proposed amendment to HS 351.
I move to support Chair Partridge's thing to S351.
Amendment.
All right, it's been moved. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, the clerk may commence to call a roll.
Representative Bartholomew, I vote yes. Representative Bach,
I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Representative Fagard,
Yes, 2 or 3 times.
Representative Graham,
Yes.
Representative Norris,
Yes.
Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
Representative Strong,
Yes.
Representative Partridge.
Yes. Okay. How does this work? Linda, do you take that message or I don't know what, but all right, so I'm going to send this
So-
right now. Oh, sorry, Mike, what?
So you never had possession, so the vote really, it doesn't need to be reported to the House Clerk. You're just
Oh,
going to
okay.
say, when
Okay,
you report this,
okay,
that your committee took a straw vote and your entire committee supports the amendment.
okay, great, thanks.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
take this opportunity to run right now so I can report this to my committee, and I think we'll probably vote on it immediately and have it ready for the.
Okay,
Or,
thanks, Chip.
okay, see you guys.
See you, thanks so much. See you in a little while. I think that, oh Lordy. I think that completes what we were going to try and accomplish here. I did see an email that Chip sent along to me. And it has to do with, it's something from Andrea Stander at Rural Vermont. And they are asking, and I don't know what's going to happen with this, so maybe I shouldn't even bring it up. But they wanted to extend the eligibility period for an applicant in the non-dairy section to, I think, December 1st of 2020. I don't know if we're supposed to do anything about this or if that's something that that Appropriations would be dealing with. Mike, do you know anything about this?
I think their issue is that the initial application needs to be introduced by October 1st. So I think that's really their issue. But the agency and VITA have asked for that so that they can basically process claims and get them out the door by December 1st. So, I mean, I think I understand their point that some farmers might not know that they have harm until after October 1st. But, you know, that's the tension, the administrative burden on the agency or VITA versus how much flexibility do you want to give to a farmer to claim harm. I don't think that the agency or VETA would be able to turn around applications that came in on December 1st.
Yeah. Plus, the money has to be spent by December 30th or 31st.
December 20th, actually, there's a
Oh,
default
December. Okay.
default reversion for any unexpended funds on December 20th. Comes back to the, I think it goes back to the Commissioner of Finance and Management for deposit into the unemployment insurance fund.
Right.
And that is to ensure that we do not send any money back to DC. And the CARES Act allows for deposit into UI or any unexpended funds. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay. All right. So I think we will let that go. And if let's see, I've got a chat from Linda. Okay, don't quite know what she's saying here, but
do you want me to say it?
oh, yes, why don't you say it, Linda?
Okay, there's a Senate Ag meeting from 11 till noon, and you are expected to come on right when you get off the floor, so there might be a little overlap.
Okay.
So I just want to let you know, I will be there when your meeting starts, but I will not be there 15 minutes before the meeting, as I often am. It'll be a few minutes before you go live.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well, why don't we finish up here? Are there any questions or, you know, in 10 minutes, we're gonna be registering to go onto the floor. John O'Brien, your hand is up.
So what might happen with 656 now? Like if it passes the Senate, will it come flying back to us because it's been changed?
It should come flying back to us at noon or whenever, at noon when we meet after the floor, and it will be anytime after, if the floor goes long, it will be anytime after that. Mike will go through 656 with us as it stands right now, coming out of the Senate. Hopefully they will have dealt with it in appropriations and we'll know what all of the details are. And then we can make a decision as to whether we're going to concur or not. And hopefully we can. All right. Was that right, Mike?
That's right.
I get 5 calls a day, if that at the most, and they're always while I'm leading these meetings. All right. Any other questions?
One more, Carolyn. What in
Okay.
a nightmare scenario 351 gets held up? What happens to that money?
It's not going to get it's not going to get held up.
Well, that's good to know.
And as my neighbor says, if it does, we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. All right, gang. So why don't we wrap up now if there are no other questions, and Linda, you can take us out of YouTube, off of YouTube. We'll be back at around noon or whenever we're done on the floor. So thank you all for joining us.